Welcome back to the rules of engagement. On the community critique section, we're about to jump into our next replay about how, as a Protoss player, you might be able to deal with swarm hosts when the Zerg throws them at you. But before we get into that, let's talk about an opportunity for you guys. It's called a Dr. Pepper Ultimate Gaming Room or Gaming House. What you do is you go to facebook.com/MLGpro. Find it where it says the Dr. Pepper Ultimate Gaming House icon. You click on that. And it says we're back because they're back for a new prize contest. You can read the details there. Basically, make a video that's just a few minutes in length, no more than 5, so you can even do it 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, however long you want. Tell them a couple things, why you're a great fan of video games. Show them the room that you want them to deck out, and they'll come to your place, deck out your room, set you up with all the new gaming apparel, a lot of awesome stuff, a nice couch so you can sit back while you play it. They'll set you up with great wallpaper, everything you need to make your room the ultimate gaming room. Again, that is facebook.com/MLGpro to find us about how to apply for this opportunity. So now let's get into our next game. The next game is going to be a Protoss replay against Zerg. That's going to be sent from the Batman. So what the Batman said is, where is he? No, he actually didn't say. He said, my opponent uses early and constant swarm host aggression to maintain map control. I attempt early harass to relieve some pressure, but to little use. I would like to know how to better deal with swarm hosts while also being prepared for other transitions. And other transitions would be like, if they go to infest or mutus or whatever. So a couple things we're going to talk about is how to react to 2-base layer play, possible counters to swarm hosts, and then how to engage the swarm hosts, because they're kind of wily guys. They can actually attack from halfway across the map, which is kind of crazy, but that's what they do. So you got to figure out how to engage them correctly. First, we'll start off with how to react to 2-base layer play. So over here, using the powerful new tool of hallucination, you get that without having to pay for it. The Batman is able to figure out that his opponent has gone 2-base layer and is getting a Hydralisk Den and an Infestation Pit. So, historically in Wings of Liberty, the standard counter to either 2-base Infest or 2-base Hydra, whichever one you have, the standard counter is going to be 2-base Colossus. You try to take a third. Infested Terran timings can be scary. Hydra timings can be scary. You want to get those Colossus out. You don't need to take the third because the Zerg player doesn't have a third base either, and you figure equal econ. If I have Colossi, I'll have the advantage. So that's the standard counter, and that is exactly what the Batman's going for here. We see throwing down that robotics into Forge as soon as he scouted his opponent, wanting to get those upgrades, actually second Forge for more upgrades, but basically wanting to get those Colossus out as soon as possible so he can deal with the Infestor or Hydralisk threat. Or Swarm Host threat. Colossi are great against Swarm Host as well. So, wanting to deal with that threat. Now, this is exactly picture-perfect play in Wings of Liberty, what you should be doing. But there's a couple things that are interesting about Heart of the Swarm. One is the opening the Batman did had a naturally late robotics because he got a lot of these sentries and he's been using hallucination to scout. So his Colossi transition, is going to be slightly later than ideal. And then the other thing is that there's some new tools in Heart of the Swarm. One is you get that Mothership Core. It's hanging out right here in the middle now. And that allows you to defend a third base much easier than you normally would. Combined with all its early sentries, I would actually propose maybe you could take a very fast third base against a 2-base layer like this. As long as your opponent's not going 2-base fast muta, a very fast third base could be an alternative way to deal with a 2-base Swarm Host / Infestor / Hydralisk tech, because with the Photon Overcharge, you should be able to hold off against any Hydralisk or Infestor aggression, combined with good Force Fields. Force Fields could also help hold off Swarm Hosts for a short amount of time. You could get a lot of Photon Cannons, and then you should still be going for Colossi, but with a little more economy to back it up. Because I think the traditional view of having equal econ to Zerg if they're layer tech, it may not be accurate anymore. Swarm Hosts are such insanely cost-efficient units, you may actually need to get more econ than the Zerg by the time they hit layer. I don't know, we'll find out. But I mean, this is a traditional standard counter. What everyone says is for longest time is the right approach to Swarm Host Infestors or Hydralisk. And it's probably the best option, because trying to hold a third against this type of army that just keeps coming and coming and coming, and this is going to get bigger, is a very scary proposition. So now let's talk about a couple counters to the Swarm Host. Maybe stick a third or not earlier, I don't know, but if you're trying to figure out, they're going Swarm Host, how do I counter it? Well, Colossus, or if you get multiple Colossi, are the only ground unit that can actually defend against Storm Hosts without taking very significant losses. So if you're not going to be coming out across the map and killing your opponent really quickly, and you basically need to get those Colossi out, because that's the only that's the only way to really defend against those Locusts without taking significant damage every volley beforehand. Now, a lot of people would talk about, okay, well, these Locusts, they actually do significantly more damage per second than a Roach, but their weakness is that they can't hit air. So I should go air units, right? They may do insane damage per second, but they only do take ground units, so I should go air. So you could go air, but there's a couple weaknesses air have. One is the early air game units. Let me see where. So your early air game units, Phoenixes and Void Rays, are kind of weak to a significant queen count. As you see here, the opponent's got 6 queens. He could easily get more. He has a Hydralisk Den. If he supports the Swarm Host, you're not going to pick them off. And then, not to mention the fact you can build Spore Crawlers there as well. And then you come into the problem that without your Colossi here, if you went air instead, all of a sudden the Locusts are just going to be doing massive damage. It's like, yeah, they can't hit your Void Rays, but they can hit everything else, and they'll kill while your Void Rays trying to deal with this small little amount of Locusts. So I don't think air is really that great a counter to Swarm Hosts, unless you get like a ton of Phoenix early, and you can really just control the map early with them. But 2-base Swarm Hosts, I think, would kick off before you could do that. And it definitely could if it's accompanied, if they see your Phoenix with their Scout, and they accompany it with Queens or Hydralisks, etc. So the other option is maybe late game air tech, right? Let's say you want to go for the Carriers or the Colossi. Well, Carriers have the problem is that they'll lose to Spore Crawlers or almost everything. Or Tempest. Tempest could be pretty good at picking off the Swarm Host, but the problem that Carriers and Tempest have is trying to get them early on, trying to pay all the money for their Fleet Beacon, and then trying to pay the cost of getting those units. You're going to be taking massive damage from the Locusts throughout that. And then also you have the problem that Tempest actually do very little DPS to Swarm Hosts. They can easily deal with that with transfusing with Queens, while they can build up something like a Viper to pull your guys into their Hydralisk Queen Spore Crawler force. So I don't really think you want to go straight to Capital Air. Your Capital Air to Tempest to Carriers, sure, they're nice late game. I don't think you can get them early game without taking too much damage from these Locust Swarms. So I think, I mean, basically, at the end of the day, I think you got to go Colossi. Right? I mean, basically, think of these Locusts. If you look at their stats, each of these guys is like a Marine on steroids, right? So think of this army that's coming at you as you're basically fighting 30 Marines, except they have more life and do more damage per second. They actually do more than even a Stim Marine. So they're like super buff Marines on steroids, right? And if you're a Protoss and you're trying to kill Marines, you say, okay, I need Psionic Storm or I need Colossi. Those are your two counters. Well, I mean, that's the reason why I'd say Colossi versus Psionic Storm in this case is because the Marines don't cost money. And so they can keep sending wave after wave after wave, and you'll eventually going to run out of Psionic Storm, whereas they're never going to run out of Swarm Hosts. In fact, each time they'll get more and more and more as they add more Swarm Hosts into their army. So Colossi are the go-to. So now we know you got to go Colossi, and Batman's doing everything just right. I mean, he's kept very close in food to his Zerg opponent while getting high-tech units. In fact, you could say he's maybe even ahead of tech as Zerg player. He's behind an army size slightly, but a lot of that's just because he's been taking losses constantly to this Swarm Host attack. Even bases, his opponent's just taking a 4th right now, but it's 3 base to 3 base. So even bases, everything's looking like it should be fine. But now we need to talk about how to engage those Swarm Hosts. So the one thing I want to jump to first is talk about how to defend, because you notice he's been taking a lot of damage with his defense. A lot of that's because his army's kind of in a blob here. So I'm going to pause it right here and talk about, in fact, let's look at this battle. See, any unit that runs forward at the front, you see the Stalker here is now going to die. All the front units all constantly die. So when you're defending against Swarm Hosts, let's jump into the this thing right here, and let's say you want to defend the section of the map that's right here, right? You want to hold this line, right? So if you want to hold this line, the way you should position your units is you want to make sure 2 things. One, you don't want any one of your units to be a little bit more in front of the rest, because then he'll get focused down. You'd rather have all your units take a tiny bit of damage so that the shields regenerate. And then other 2 things that's very important is you want to make sure your Colossi don't overkill units. You want no more than 2 Colossi attacking the same section of those Locusts. Because or else if all your Colossi shoot one section, sure they kill those 5-6 Locusts, but then the other 18 come and kill you from somewhere else. So you really want to spread out your Colossi a bit. So if you're trying to defend this line, I would suggest like 2 Colossi right here, and then you maybe have like 3 right here, right? And you put them so their max range can shoot that line. And then the rest of your army, I would put on a hold position in a line that's basically right. The front line should be right on your Colossi. It's even okay if the Colossi get hit some. And put them on a hold position there. And it's fine if, you know, some of them aren't attacking. You just want to make sure the damage is spread very evenly amongst your whole army to ensure the minimum amount of losses. So that's how you want to defend against Stormhost, and you can avoid a couple of these unnecessary losses. Put those guys in a hold position formation. But eventually you want to move out against Stormhost. And the thing is, as soon as you move out, you're going to lose that perfect formation, which means every one of these Stormhost armies, you're going to take a loss, right? Like right here, he's actually kiting really well here. Wow. But he's still going to lose one Stalker, and 2 more almost died. So no matter what, even with really great kite micro like what Batman showed there, you're still going to take losses. So every time you move out, you need to cover ground as quickly as possible, because every single volley that those swarm hosts shoot out you is going to be meaning you're taking you losses. It's going to cost them nothing. So you want to cover ground as quickly as possible and get right on top of these swarm hosts. And the reason why you want to get on top of them is because, you know what, if you get really close to them, of course his opponent's going to try to stop them with reinforcements. Right when they spawn these locusts, your Colossi can kill the locust and a swarm host with the same volley. So right here, ideally, you want to keep stutter stepping on top of those swarm hosts and commit to the battle. Because if you notice this, you can kill a couple swarm hosts right here, just with the Colossi already attacking the locust. So the situation is you're in this battle, you've covered the ground, and now all of a sudden it looks like they have a stronger army, right? Like he's got all these queens coming in from the back, the locusts just spawned, and you know you're kind of worried the army's getting weak. But you know what? If you retreat here, what's going to happen? The locusts are going to... You're basically... You've already taken losses just trying to cross the gap to get close to the swarm hosts. If you retreat now, like, you've just basically taken losses for nothing. It's like running up to siege tanks, taking a bunch of shots, and then realizing you're weak and running away. Sometimes that can work, but in general, it's something I would recommend avoid doing. If you're going to run up to the siege tanks, even if you're stronger, you lose the battle, you might as well kill as many as you can when you're there, because you might not get another chance to close that distance again for the rest of the game. So in this situation here, the ideal way, once you've closed the distance, is let me close this, clear the screen here real quick. Sorry, got some other things. The ideal way to really approach this is think about, all right, my opponent made a big mistake right here. And they've been winning because their build is really good. This Foremost build is freaking insanely good. So my opponent's winning. They made a mistake in that their units, their queens, aren't near the Swarmhost. This is my one chance to maybe win this game. So drop some force field bubbles here, right? Force fields right here. Keep those queens out, and then stutter step these Colossi into the Locust. Now it sounds suicidal, right? To stutter step towards these guys that I already explained do insane damage per second. Like each Locust is 1.5 stim Marines in damage per second. They're absolutely insane. In fact, they actually might be higher than that, but it's somewhere around like 1.5 stim Marines. So it's kind of crazy to walk into that, but if you can get rid of those swarm hosts, that's what you got to do, because or else the Locusts are never going to stop coming. So you don't even have to stutter step that forward, but kind of just make sure you're killing those Locusts. Now, on the other hand, what the Zerg player can do, are killing the swarm hosts that are underneath the Locusts. What the Zerg player is going to do, that's actually really cool, is he can just lift up these swarm hosts. If you keep running in, he can lift up the swarm hosts and run them away. And if they learn how to kite with swarm hosts, which Zerg players are going to start to do, then you're in really big trouble. But for now, just hope they don't know how to kite with them, because that's their best shot. And if they do, you can still use, what you can do is you can ditch the Colossi and Sentries and blink the Stalkers. In fact, let's actually talk about that. So we could do, let's say he's kiting with the swarm host. Let me fast forward back up to that zone. Sorry guys, I left it behind a bit. We'll get back to this engagement right here. So let's say he starts doing that swarm host kiting thing, which is going to happen right here. So he picks up the swarm host. Fast forward a little bit more. Let's say you were moving in, you force fitted off to hide the queens here. He picked up the swarm host, starts running away to the right after he spawns the locust swarm. I would say blink all your stalkers over the locusts and just run past them. And run down the swarm host with the stalkers. while your Colossi, you could either recall them, or you could just try to start a step backwards away from the Locust and take them on that way. So one of those two options could have worked, because if you just keep trading like this, it's amazing micro and you're avoiding losses, but you're minimizing your losses to the best you can, but your opponent is like taking no losses because it's all free units, right? For the most part it is. So it's a losing battle that you eventually are going to end up losing. So I talked about Swarm Host kiting. This is what they do. You can spawn a section of Locusts. This is for the Zerg players out there who want to maximize the Swarm Host usage. So a side note. You spawn the Locusts, and then during their cooldown, you run away. And then what you can do is you'll notice you don't have to pay attention to the cooldown icon. You watch the Swarm Hosts, right? They're running away, Look at this. They got the little freckles on their back. It's a very obvious thing. You'll see the Locusts are spawning on their back. You bury them right there, and you spawn another wave, right? So you can bury them right now, spawn a wave, send that wave to your opponent. Right as that wave spawns, you can unburrow them and move them either away from danger or to a different location where you think is better to spawn the guy. So you can spawn it. As soon as that guy's hatch, you can lift up and retreat and go to a different angle. Like right here, you lift up, retreat, you move back. As soon as that they get the freckles on their back again. Oh, not quite getting the freckles yet. As soon as they get the freckles, well, now you unbury them right when they get the freckles. You gotta bury them again. As soon as they get the freckles, you spawn another wave. And look, guess what? During the danger zone, once these Locusts die, the Swarm Host will be vulnerable. You pick them up, pull them back again. Pull them back over here, you bury them again. And now all of a sudden, you actually, they're really cool because you can kite your opponent's army with these Swarm Hosts, right? You can kite your opponent's army with the Swarm Hosts, and it's not like kiting Marines, where you watch like Marine King do it, and the Marines are like, they're like every millisecond they're turning around and shooting again, because to optimize their attack rate, you have to turn around every time the attack cooldown's up, which only Marine King and like world-class Korean Terrans can do at the most optimal level. Swarm Hosts, you have to hit the burrow and unburrow not every 0.86 seconds like a Marine, or if it's on stim, it's even shorter than that, but every 22 seconds. So it's something even at low level, it's a way of kiting you can do that's actually like the easiest unit in the game to kite with, because it attacks once every 22 seconds. And it can attack from a range of about half the map. So it's something a skill that you should master to keep those Swarm Hosts safe in between their summoning cooldown rounds. So I know this was kind of ended on a note where I talked about how strong Zerg is using the Swarm Hosts. But basically go back, if you're a Protoss player trying to deal with Swarm Hosts, I think Batman did everything right here with the Colossi. But when you're defending, try to set up a perfect concave so you don't lose any units. And then when you're on the attack, you've only got one shot. Like, you can't come in and back out. Like, you just got to go all in those Swarm Hosts. If you think you're not strong enough, well, it's too bad. Like, you got to make. It's kind of like playing Zerg vs Terran, right? You got to say, okay, I'm going in, and you go in. As soon as you get out your defensive formation, you just got to plow through. You can't stop to really, smell the roses. Maybe bring in a Warp Prism with you so you can warp reinforcements even on creep right where you're at. That could be a big help, but just got to be very, very committed on your attack when you're dealing with Swarm Hosts. So wraps up this segment about Protoss vs Zerg dealing with Swarm Hosts. Take a short break and be on to our next segment, which is going to be a Terran replay submitted by Axslav, basically about how to make sure you're going to win the game, how to not mess up and you get an early advantage. See you guys in a minute.